The story that you are about to hear is a compilation of documented true facts, featuring characters, events, or places that has played a role in shaping history. Please sit back and listen as I recite this narrative for you. The Ripper Crew, or the Chicago Rippers, was a satanic cult and organized crime group composed of serial killers, cannibals, rapists, and necrophiles. Robin Gecht and three associates, Edward Spreitzer, and brothers Andrew and Thomas Kokoraleis. They were suspected in the disappearances of 18 women in Illinois in 1981 and 1982. The gang's first victim was 28-year-old Linda Sutton, who was abducted on May 23, 1981. On June 1st, her decomposing body was found in an empty field in Villa Park, Illinois. The body was reduced to mostly bones with small amounts of clinging flesh. It appeared that it had been eaten by wildlife and maggots. The medical examiner found the reason for the accelerated decomposing was because both of her breasts had been removed, leaving large open wounds. The most disturbing facts the ME found were that Linda had been gang raped, sodomized, and had her left breast cut off while she was alive. Her killers had sexually violated her, amputated her breast, kept her handcuffed, stabbed her numerous times, and mutilated her body in various areas in the week that they held her. It was almost a year before the gang struck again. On May 15, 1982, they abducted Lorraine Borowski, just as she was about to open the realtor's office where she worked. When Lori's boss, Donald Stibb, arrived at work at 8:30 a.m., he found the door locked. As he was letting himself in, he noticed some items on the sidewalk in front of the building. There was a pair of women's shoes, a keychain with keys, and cosmetics. Thinking a woman had lost her purse, he picked them up and took them inside and called the police. Assuming the items then belonged to Lori, Donald and the detective went outside and searched the area for her. A bolo was issued for Lori. The 5'3" 129-pound woman was considered to be in danger. It appeared she had been taken from in front of her place of work while she was probably getting ready to open the door. Lori's body wouldn't be found for 4 months on October 10, 1982. Hunters walking through the Clarendon Hills Cemetery, close to Westmont, made a discovery. Her body had been dumped in the thicket with her clothing scattered nearby. An autopsy would reveal that Lori had been repeatedly raped. A wire had been wrapped around her breast tightly until it cut off her breast. She had been beaten savagely, and it appeared that something had been inserted into the wound from her severed breast. Lori was eventually killed with an axe. On the night of May 29, 1982, Sue Mack left the family's restaurant after work with her brother Kent. They were in the car and were arguing. While on the highway, Kent pulled over and told his sister to get out, telling her to get a ride home with their parents. It wasn't until both cars got home that they realized Sue still needed to be picked up. They left at once to get her but couldn't find Sue. The family called the police as soon as they were unable to locate her. They were worried because Sue didn't have any money on her or ID and still only spoke limited English. On the last day of September 1982, police received a call of a woman's body in a field east of Barrington Road in the town of South Barrington. It was only a mile away from where she got out of her brother's car that fateful night. Her body was found in the red sweater and black slacks that she had been wearing. The autopsy would show that she died from a fracture to her skull. Ling was only able to identify her sister by the clothes she was wearing. 2 weeks after they abducted Mac, they picked up Angel York in their van and handcuffed her. One of the men then handed her a knife and told her to cut her own breast. Angel said after she did so, the one man went into a frenzy. He took his knife back and cut her breast more. Then the man masturbated into the wound. When he was finished, he duct taped it shut and dumped Angel on the street. She called the police to report the incident. Angel described her attackers, but the police were unable to locate them. Unfortunately, she did not have a lot of information about the van or did not get the men's names. The gang did not strike again for 2 months. On August 28, 1982, the body of Sandra Delaware was discovered on the bank of the Chicago River. Sandra had been stabbed, strangled, and her left breast had been amputated. Her wrists were bound together behind her back with shoestrings. Knotted around her neck was a bra. The autopsy would show that her body had been found only 6 hours after death. On September 8th, 31-year-old Rose Davis was found dead lying on her back. Her sweater found nearby appeared to have been ripped off Rose's body. Also located close by were her blue corduroy slacks. Investigators first on the scene noticed the similarities to the previous victim's wounds. An autopsy showed that Rose had been stabbed repeatedly, raped, and strangled with a black sock. Her face was beaten so badly it was hard to recognize her. Her stomach showed numerous small cuts and punctures. Her breast had been cut and mutilated like the other victims, and a large blood pool accumulated from her anal cavity. Numerous hatchet blows to the face and head eventually killed her. On October 6, 1982, Beverly was found by the railroad tracks in Chicago's Humboldt Park. But, unlike the Ripper crew's other victims, this one was alive. Just barely. The crew, thinking she was dead, had dumped her body. Someone had come across Beverly and called for help. She was found with multiple injuries, including an amputated left breast, a severely slashed right breast, and numerous stab wounds inflicted upon her body. Beverly told her horrific ordeal to the police. A red Dodge van with tinted windows had pulled up to her and asked how much for a date. When the driver offered her more than she was asking for, she became nervous but got in the van anyway. She told the cops all the details she could remember, including the feathers hanging from the rearview mirror by a roach clip. The driver was a slender white man about 25 years old. During her attack, he wore a flannel shirt and square-toed boots. She said he had greasy brown hair and a mustache. After she was in the van, Gecht pulled out a gun and told her to get in the back of the vehicle. There was a plywood divider separating the cab from the back of the van. She had to go through a hinged plywood door to get in the back. Along the walls in the van were wooden shelves holding tools and electrical wiring. Gecht ordered her to remove her clothes and she complied. Next, he handcuffed her, then forced her to perform oral sex on him. On October 6, 1982, the Ripper crew pulled up next to a phone booth in their van. They opened fire on Rafael Torrado and an unnamed man with him. Both got hit. Rafael was the intended target and the only one to die. The crew had started taking murder-for-hire contracts to earn some money and do what they already enjoyed: killing. The men were suspects in the disappearance of Carol Pappas, wife of Chicago Cubs pitcher Milt Pappas. She disappeared on September 11, 1982. Her body was recovered 5 years later, and the death was ruled an accident. But based on an autopsy, it was hard to determine the cause of death. Detective Warren Wilkes would go to Cicero Avenue, talking to prostitutes and passing out flyers with the Ripper crew's van details. Chicago police eventually located the van on the 2900 block of North Central Avenue. Sitting behind the wheel was a husky red-haired man that did not fit the description given by Beverly Washington. The officers walked up to the van and looked around inside. It was just as Beverly had described. When questioned where he was headed, Spreitzer said he had to meet his boss at an apartment they were remodeling. They followed the van there. Spreitzer asked his boss to come out, telling him some cops wanted to talk to him. The first thing the officers noticed was that Robin Gecht fit the victim's description to a T. Gecht was even wearing the same type of shirt and boots she had described him in. But most alarming was how calm Gecht appeared. Either this was a complete mix-up or they were face to face with a psychopath. The officers told Robin Gecht that his van description had been given to them about a potential crime. They informed him that he needed to go to Area 5 headquarters at Grand and Central Avenues for questioning. Gecht agreed. While this was happening, Tech searched the van, finding a pill. The lab would prove this was a sedative tablet and similar to what the victim had said she was forced to swallow. They found that 2 years before the murders began, Gecht had been arrested and charged with contributing to the sexual delinquency of a 14-year-old girl. At the time of his arrest, Gecht was living in Hanover Park around the same time Schumack had disappeared from the area. When they dug in a little further, they uncovered that he had molested his own sister as a teenager. His family sent him to live with his grandmother for a while after that. That initial day, Gecht had been easygoing and agreed to talk to the police. At that time, they were only asking questions about his van. But when they came back a few weeks later for a follow-up, Gecht brought up a lawyer. The police interrogated Spreitzer for hours before he broke down and started to confess in a 78-page statement. It was apparent to the officers present that Spreitzer was deeply afraid of robbing Gecht. The group would regularly meet at Gecht's place after his wife went to work late at night while his children were in bed. They had created a satanic chapel in his attic, complete with an altar draped in red cloth. The only lighting would come from the candles that would flicker across the walls that were adorned with 6 red and black crosses. The majority of the Ripper crew's victims would be killed in that attic. While the man tortured the women with knives and removed their breasts with piano wire, Gecht would be reciting from the Satanic Bible. Almost all of the breast amputations happened while the victims were alive. They would always eat the breast in the attic as part of their ritualistic sacrament, even if they had killed the victim elsewhere. Gecht would continue to read passages as each man would take his turn masturbating into the severed breasts. Once they had all taken their turn, Gecht would cut it into pieces and they would each consume the flesh. The Ripper crew believed that their leader Gecht had supernatural powers. The consensus was he used his powers to control his followers, both mentally and physically. Just as they had been drawn to him, they believed Gecht used his powers to draw others in as well. They would later say they felt like he had put them in a trance and that there was no way to escape him and his powers. This power is how the crew said he would convince them to do his will by murdering and committing cannibalism. After being caught by the police, the crew would fall back on a similar excuse most followers give for their crimes. They were afraid that their leader would kill them if they didn't do what he wanted. The police executed a search warrant on the homes of the crew. Inside Gecht's attic, they found a Satanic chapel. They also recovered a rifle that would match the Rafael Torrado shooting. The Kokoraleis brother and Spreitzer confessed to their crimes, but Gecht protested his innocence. After a series of trials, Thomas Kokoraleis was convicted of murder, but only sentenced to life imprisonment as his reward for his initial confession. Since then, his life sentence has been commuted and he was scheduled to be released on September 30, 2017, but his parole was denied by Illinois officials. He was released on parole the morning of March 29, 2019. Gecht is serving 120 years in the Menard Correctional Center for the attempted murder and rape of Beverly Washington and will be eligible for parole in 2042. Andrew Kokoraleis was sentenced to death and was executed by lethal injection on March 17, 1999. Edward Spreitzer was sentenced to death, but the sentence was commuted in George H. Ryan's last-minute commutation of all death sentences in Illinois in 2003. Incidentally, Andrew Kokoraleis was Governor Ryan's only execution just over 2 months into his administration. Kokoraleis was also the last inmate executed in Illinois almost 12 years before Governor Pat Quinn signed legislation to abolish the death penalty on March 9, 2011, and commuted 15 death sentences to life imprisonment without parole. Hey everyone! I just wanted to express how grateful I am that you took the time to listen to my narration. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I am Twysted Mind and please enjoy the rest of your day. Salamat!